Well, Happy New Year! And hope we're going live here. Let me just try and escape from this and see if this is working. Oh, hello! Hello, my baby gorillas! And thank you very much for.
If this is working.
Hello!
Hello, my baby gorillas!
And Happy New Year, guys! Happy New Year! I hope you're having a great time. And we'd just like to say congratulations to Nigel for getting us out of the EU. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much to Nigel. A great deal of effort had been put in. Let's have a wee look at what Nigel's been saying. And oh, there's Mr. Laird. We'll come back to Mr. Laird later. Nigel Farage. He's probably absolutely half canned. Let's see what he's saying. Let's get the filters.
Well, it's the 30th of December 2020, a big day, a momentous day. In fact, it seems like an age ago that I gave my last speech in the European Parliament, waved my Union Jack, had my speech cut off, and then we headed, of course, to Parliament Square for that big celebratory event at 11 p.m. on the 31st of January. It seems like it was years ago, because so much has happened since.
I mean, Nigel has spent 30 years relentlessly, almost by himself, with the criticism of all of the mainstream media against him, being slandered. Had some terrible things happen to him. And it just shows you a persistence from Nigel. I think Nigel's got bigger things as well ahead. I think with the new Reform Party, he's got some huge things ahead. So let's hear a bit more. Come on, Nigel.
COVID. That very day we were in Parliament Square was the day the first diagnosis for COVID-19 was found in the United Kingdom. The day started, I guess, with good news. The news that the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine is now approved and will roll out in a few weeks' time. I know there were some that are still sceptical about vaccines, but hey, look what they've done with smallpox, diphtheria, tuberculosis, and many other things.
Now, the question is, why do I need a vaccine if there's a 99% survival rate? Obviously, for the elderly, I would suggest that is very important. But why would I need to take a vaccine if you've got a 90%? Why was there not a vaccine, for example, for SARS or pig flu or anything else? What they haven't been very articulate for me on the reasons behind having a vaccine. What is the purpose of having a vaccine for if you've got a 90% survival rate? And if you've got no contraindications.
But the really good thing about this particular vaccine is it costs £3 a go. So the government ordered 100 million doses for £300 million. Compare that to the 22 billion that's been spent on test and trace, which doesn't even work.
£22 billion? Where the hell did £22 billion go? I mean, they're just pulling figures out of the air. And I mean, where did you get £22 billion? I mean, really? It's just absolutely unbelievable. Let me see if I can get what you're saying, if there's any comments up there. £22 billion. I mean, it's incredible.
And that sounds like a good and a cheap deal. But you know, whatever the questions about the PCR test, about false positives, the fact is that today's death figure is back to just shy of 1,000 people. So we're back to the very worst of this back in April and May. And
Happy New Year to you too. Thanks very much. Happy New Year. Keep it up, the great work, great content, getting the true facts on there. Love your work, Bud. Thank you very much. That's very kind. We do try and do our best to get it correct as well. I don't want to get it wrong. I think slandering somebody who is with incorrect information is terrible. I think it's absolutely disgusting, almost a criminal offence, if you ask me. So I'm careful to try and make sure what I say is correct. So I don't want to say to somebody, that's why I wouldn't malign sort of Alex Salmond. I wouldn't say anything, I've not said anything bad against Alex Salmond, because I try not malign people with false information. I try and get it so that it's on the money. And I think what's happening to us is that we are being manipulated, and just now we're all stuck in our houses by ourselves. Well, I think some people are going out and socialising, but this really has to come to an end. There has to be an end point so that we actually start to regenerate the economy, because what we're going to find after the COVID actually stops, or the end point of the actual illness stops, is that what's happened to the economy, and that's going to be I mean, we've already got Brexit. We're getting trade deals, zero tariff trade deals around the world. I think we just signed one with Turkey, and we will then have to stimulate the economy, and that's going to be the biggest thing to get to grow, to have exponential growth. And how that, I think Nigel and maybe the Scottish Libertarian Party, the people to get the growth. Nicola Sturgeon doesn't seem she wants the growth. She wants more commissions and happiness commissions, and oh my goodness, I can't believe what they're actually trying to put forward.
We have a real problem. Hospitals in Essex, in Kent, are filling up and patients are being dispersed elsewhere. And the virus is spreading very rapidly indeed.
I'll try and read your comments as we go along as well, because this is the first time I've gone live and I've actually set it up, so I'm glad it's actually going live just now as well. Your info is on the ball, and Nicola Sturgeon has to go, and John Sweeney, Ferrier and Hamza then disgrace to the Scottish people. Yes, well, we're not. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that.
And yet, the Nightingale hospitals, and my Brexit Party colleague Richard...
I think the point on what you've just said there is that we've actually been sold a puck, because this is meant to be a Scottish National Party. If they set it up as an Islamo-Marxist globalist party, I don't think they would be getting the votes. We're going to be very authoritarian, and we're going to clamp down on you. Who would vote for that? I mean, who would actually willingly vote for that? I prefer to vote for Tam Laird or Nigel here. Why would I want to vote for somebody who is overtly authoritarian? Boris isn't much better anyway. I think Boris is becoming like a useful, and he is part of the establishment. He is an establishment tool for the establishment, the globalist establishment. The thought that there are people within the Conservative Party who are not part of the globalist cabal, but the globalist cabal out with the Parliament and they control the Parliament are so strong that they can manipulate the Conservative Party and the Labour Party as well, and the Liberals, to actually manipulate the whole thing. So you've got to remember also the SNP, Plaid Cymru, the Greens. All of those are in the globalist cabal. And what they try and do is destroy any voices that are an attack on it. Just like Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson wasn't an attack on the globalists to start with. Tommy Robinson was a response to what the globalists had done. They're just a globalist party now, for not the people of Scotland and Govan Hill is like third world slum. It's not only that that's correct, it's also that you're actually going to be classed as a second-class citizen in your own country. That's what they want to do. That's the thing that you have to understand. They want you to be a second-class citizen in your own country. And I'm very much pro-gay rights, although I'm completely heterosexual, I'm very much pro-gay rights. But it hasn't lost to me that a lot of these people are homosexuals as well, that are actually controlling this. Globalist Marxist homosexuals who are in charge but feel hard done by. I mean, it's quite an incredible situation where you're the actual... I mean, it's a bit like let's just say a royal couple, shall we say, that feel hard done by. they're the oppressed group, except they're in charge, or certainly they're high up in the establishment. So you then project oppression for being part of the elite. I mean, it's quite a mind bender. The people who are oppressing are the people who are oppressed in the Marxian terminology. Woof!
This, again, the Excel Centre in East London. The Nightingale hospitals that were built at great cost, albeit built very quickly, they have now been stripped bare, and apart from one Exeter, are not being used at all. I find that almost beyond belief. And so once again, we have Matt Hancock.
Nigel just seems to get it right. He's on the money. Nigel just seems to be politically on the money all the time. I hope he stands. I hope Count Dankula stands for the Scottish Libertarian Party as well in one of the 8 regions. I think that he would be a great individual. I know he's having a child just now, and it might not be the best timing for him. But I think him standing as one of the regional representatives for the Scottish Libertarian Party would be poetic justice. And it would be very interesting to see what sort of support Count Dankula got as standing as an MSP. I think that would be absolutely hilarious, and good luck to him.
Standing up for the House of Commons, Boris Johnson doing his 5 p.m. press conference. We're told just one more push and it'll be okay. And now 75% of the nation is in Tier 4. It's just the silly arse that are now in Tier 1. Why they just can't be honest with us and say, in effect, we're in a national lockdown.
But why are we in a national lockdown if the vast majority of people are surviving? I think we've got data now. I am not an expert on the data, and I'm not an expert on what's happening within the hospital and the medical situation that's actually happening. It looks like it's being suppressed, and I'll just move on from Nigel just now to what's actually happening with me. So this is my Pinterest. This is my Pinterest page, and all of the videos have been taken down for some obscure reason. All the followers have gone, and some reason the whole channel's been taken off Pinterest, except for one video, which I have no idea why. I haven't been informed about that either. When you go onto the Guerilla TV channel and go down to something like Facebook, now Facebook's deleted my 2 profiles. So I don't know why the Guerilla TV has still got a link up there. I don't know. I've not been on Facebook. Absolutely disgusting. Facebook deleting my profiles is the same as me taking and working on a manuscript or a book, and them as the what do you call it? The person that actually looks at the book, what's it called? The book writer, or the person who's what's the name of it? Oh, it slipped my mind. The person that looks at the book's just ripped up your book in front of you. It was me that spent years developing my Facebooks or my LinkedIn profiles, which have also been taken down, and they haven't returned photographs or anything like that. They've just ripped it all up. They've just said you're deleted for whatever political reasons they've got. I'm now back in Twitter. So we're back in Twitter, but funnily enough, I was actually deleted from Twitter just in time for the US elections. It's quite convenient, isn't it? And then let back on, funnily enough, after the US elections. If you're no woke Green Party loving, then you're going to be banned on Facebook. Well, they're obviously taking a political side. They're obviously taking a political angle, which they didn't inform you prior to the actually signing up to Twitter or Facebook that they're actually a political entity who, if you don't agree with them, they'll destroy your content. So I think we have to bring in laws. If people are wanting to do business in our country through the internet, then we must have the right to A, fine them, B, take them to court in this country, have laws to protect individual rights, and ultimately to potentially ban them, up to including the nuclear option of actually banning them. Just put a firewall round and actually delete their websites. Now, there's ways around that, but I don't see why a Californian companies are interfering in British politics. That's just as bad as the Chinese interfering. And I don't think there's much difference between the wokarati for the postmodernist Marxists. They seem to be have captured Silicon Valley and the globalist entity, the globalist cabal, the corporatist globalists, and also the what's happening with the Chinese. Trump got robbed. Save our kids from the creepy Joe Biden or senile kiddie sniffer. I mean, it's quite incredible that Joe Biden actually said we're going to steal this election. We are going to steal this election, and he said it blatantly. There was about 10 people at his rallies, and he said it blatantly. He was going to steal the election. And obviously that's what they've done. We're in a very bad time with these authoritarian corporatist globalists. And they seem to think that they can do whatever they want. Let's move on to sort of Black Lives Matter. And I just came across this just there, funnily enough. Racial murders, this is in the UK. This is a far-right paper called The Guardian. And they've said racial murders, nearly half the victims are white. Oh my goodness, I didn't hear that in the news. Home Office released figures, and now these are figures between 1995 to 2004. So I don't know what the updated from 2004 to 2020 is. Nearly half of all racially motivated murders in the last decade have been white, according to official figures released by the Home Office. Data released under the Freedom of Information legislation show that between 1995 and 2004, there had been 58 murders where the police consider a racial element played a key part. Out of these, 24 have been where the victim was white. Disclosure will add to the intense debate over multiculturalism in British society. The figures also overturn the assumption that almost all racial murders are committed against ethnic minorities. Well, and this is where Humza Useless hate speech bill that's only going to affect white people. So people who are making, like, say for instance, Muslims who, I'll just go into this as well. I quite like this. I love Ariel. What's her name? Ariel. Real. I wonder if I got it. I wonder if I got it in my thingies. Where is she? Lesbian. Italian. Where is she? Come on. Ariella. There she is. So, under Humza Useless's new hate speech bills, I find this very interesting. So I don't know how it's going to work if a Muslim, then are they going to be exempt from Humza Yousafzai's new hate speech bill? So let's have a look at this. I love her.
Legitimate Islamic jurisprudence, scholastic conversations around what's the best way to kill a gay.
Dear Muslim friends, if you've ever...
So I just want to rewind that because that's an incredible thing.
Legitimate Islamic jurisprudence.
So basically, Islamic law, Sharia law.
Scholastic conversations around what's the best way to kill a gay.
What's the best way to kill your gay? Now, I don't know of any even far right or what they would class as far right commentator, apart from Islam, who's talking about killing homosexuals. I mean, that's incredible. Or imprisoning them, which a large proportion of the British Muslim population want to do.
Dear Muslim friends, if you've ever condemned Islamophobia on Twitter, today is the day to speak out and loudly and also condemn homophobia. Couldn't agree more. I too have noticed this disgusting trend even within the LGBT community. Everybody wants to be politically correct and nobody wants to call out issues within religions against gay people because they're afraid of being called Islamophobic. But I barely see any...
There's no such thing as Islamophobic. There's no such thing as you don't have an irrational fear from a religion. Obviously, all religions are cults anyway, so there's no proof that any religion is correct. So you're basically in a cult, that wants to advocate violence. We've just heard. I mean, that's an ex-Muslim. He seems like a really nice guy as well. There's a lot of Muslims who are really love to bits, having lived with them, but that's an ex-Muslim saying correctly, which I've read it and he's correct in what he says, and we already know because it's put into practice in predominantly Muslim countries. What's the best way to kill your gay? So if you're gay in a Muslim country, you better be very careful.
Out the homophobia, the biphobia, the transphobia within the Muslim and Islam religion. And trust me, yes, it is actually homophobic.
And really, they have varying opinions. You have 7 countries that apply the extreme interpretation of Sharia, including Saudi Arabia, where
I think Bahrain wanted to stone them to death.
it is a punishable, basically offense by the capital punishment execution. If the person is caught, of course, but you have to have witnesses that can provide that.
Recently on Drag Race, we saw one of the contestants wear a hijab as part of his act, and when Jeff Goldblum called him out and said this...
Is there something in that religion that is anti-homosexuality and anti-woman?
It's a complex issue. I have my own misgivings about the way that LGBT people are treated in the Middle East. And at the same time, I am one.
He got attacked. He got absolutely attacked by the left. And I know many people that are going to watch this video that are on the left are going to say, but the Muslims and the Islamic religion doesn't believe that. Or...
Yes, it does. It definitely does. That's what they're not just making up. They don't just say, oh, right, well, I'll just make up something and then kill people. It's definitely in the book. Same with being a demi, a second-class citizen, which is basically what Humza Yousafzai is trying to do in Scotland now with the consent of the alleged lesbian Nicola Sturgeon.
Not every Muslim or not every Islamic person...
What have you said, buddy? The BLM and Marxist commies wrecking our football. Well, why are... so, in the football, why is the kneeling... If I was a footballer, I would have a clause say that I was not going to participate in any political activity. I was not prepared to participate in any political activity, regardless of how virtuous or not it was. But the fact of the kneeling malarkey, which I'll come on to in a minute, the kneeling malarkey is definitely for the BLM group, which is a Marxist organisation. Nigel Farage has pointed out, but Nigel didn't have to point it because the people who started BLM are saying they're trained Marxists. We already know Antifa are anarcho-communists, so BLM are not the same Marxists as Antifa. They are actually different types of Marxists.
Believes what the Muslim religion is teaching them, and I know that, obviously. But what is it like being a gay Muslim or being gay in an Islamic country? I just happen to have found one who's willing to tell his story. Here you go. Keep in mind we are continuing the conversation about being LGBT and Muslim or of Islamic faith over on my slug.com page. It's a website that prides
I think she's great. I love her.
In fact, pro-free speech. We have a little group over there. Go to slug.com/Ariel and get involved in this conversation. There's only a few hundred of you or so I answer every single thing you guys post.
My name is Jimmy Bangash. I am.
And Jimmy, if you need me, if there's anything I can do to help, or any of the ex-Muslims want to speak to me, you can get me through the guerillatvchannel at gmail.com. I'm more than happy to help.
Like you said, actually somebody who used to be Muslim and isn't anymore at the moment. So the term that I use actually, and many of us use, is ex-Muslim, because we used to be Muslim, but we're not Muslim anymore. And I think that term is quite a politicized term, actually. The reason that people say ex-Muslim, often you won't hear people say ex-Christian, for example, or ex-Hindu, is because there's some severe ramifications for leaving Islam. Often.
So Nigel criticised me for calling it a death cult. Child rapist death cult, to be brutally honest, but definitely a death cult regardless of. I can come back into the child raping part later on. But Jimmy's already just said, an ex-Muslim has said, and he's about to say something else, he's already said that homosexuals get killed in the Middle East for being homosexual. He's just about to say that apostates get killed in the Middle East.
You'll lose your whole family if you're in...
and then you'll be ostracised. Which is what's happening with me on the internet. They're trying to ostracise you, deplatform, even though I'm a limited company and even though I'm a British politician, unelected, but I'm still a British political entity.
A number of countries, like 10 plus countries, if you say that you're not Muslim anymore, you can end up either being imprisoned or some countries have the death sentence.
So you're getting killed for being a homosexual in Muslim countries. And we are importing them, just letting people walk into a country willy-nilly.
Legal punishment for that. Yeah. Interestingly enough, those same countries have the similar death sentence for being gay and various imprisonment in other countries for being gay. And these are all in Muslim majority countries that we find them. So me, like a number of other people, have left Islam. So that actually, you know what, this ideology doesn't make sense. Different reasons for different people. Actually, like either logically, it doesn't make sense.
I'll let you look at that later on. But he seems like a really nice fella, old Jimmy. What was going to do there? So, let's look at a far right organisation that's corrupting British society. So there's been 50, I think it's probably been more than that, but 50 foiled Muslim terrorist attacks in the UK since 9/11. I think there's actually more than that now. I think they wouldn't probably include the attack in Glasgow as a terrorist attack. It's apparently about the Wi-Fi. And so let's look at a far right company. UK terrorist police 50 attack stops in 7/7. The UK's most senior counter-terrorist police officer has said that up to 50 deadly attacks have been stopped since 7th of July bombings 10 years ago. I don't know when this. I don't know if they've got a date on this article. So that was 5 years ago. So there was 50 up from. In 10 years there was 50 attacks. So nearly 5 a year. On July the 7th, 2005, 52 people died when 4 bombs were detonated in London. The Met's Assistant Commissioner Mark Rowley said that the plots have been different, but all could have resulted in fatalities. Oh, that's nice to know. Let's have a look for the 3 victims, because obviously we all know what happened to the gentleman in America. So I'll come back to that in a second, but Who were the 3 victims of Glasgow stabbings? Three victims. So let's see. Shock family, knife attack. I don't hear Nicola Sturgeon talk about this in the Scottish Parliament or any of the mainstream political parties. Guess they wouldn't want to do it. The family victims. Let's see if we can just get some pictures of them. So these are the 3 gay guys, I think, that were killed the week before down in London. So the 3 gay men, not back to the homophobia in Islam. I'm sure that had nothing to do with it. So there's Nigel. What does Nigel say? Horrible tragedy in Glasgow hotel housing illegal migrants. It's not wrong there. All over the UK, hotels are filling up with young men who are coming across the channel every day. It's a massive risk to our well-being, yet the government does nothing. I mean, it's funny that Nicola Sturgeon, let's see if we can get Nicola Sturgeon up. About, what's his name? George.
The scenes in Glasgow last night were horrifying and disgraceful, and we should be pretty blunt about the cause of that. It was not people protecting statues or the cenotaph. It was a bunch of racist thugs seeking to pour out their prejudice, vile prejudice against asylum seekers and refugees. It is not what...
Well, we already know that the asylum seekers and refugees aren't really asylum seekers. They may be immigrants, illegal immigrants.
Scotland is about welcoming refugees and asylum seekers.
Who said that? Is that in your manifesto? Where did you say that?
It's part of who we are. We should stand against.
Was it?
The scenes that we saw in
part of who you are is obviously getting 3 people killed in Glasgow, where when I just went in the browser, I couldn't find any pictures of them. So 3 people were murdered in Glasgow by one of your refugees, and there's not even any acknowledgement of who these people were. Just brushed over by the corporatists who are governing the internet on behalf of you. I didn't hear you talk about any of them. Didn't hear you actually speak about any of them, Nicola. Was that because you felt guilty?
Glasgow last night, and those who broke the law, in my view, should face...
Well, I think Antifa breaks the law. I think Antifa are a terrorist organisation, but you seem to be politically aligned with Antifa.
The full force of it.
Let's have a wee look what happens. And this is, I think, Antifa getting chased out of Glasgow. But no criticism of Antifa's actions. I mean, we've seen multiple killings in America by Antifa and BLM, but obviously Nicola's not interested in that, is she? She's already got her globalist agenda.
Guinness World Book of Records as the country from which most countries have gained independence.
I mean, they talk about independence, but then being governed by Europe.
Since 1939, 62 countries have gained independence from Westminster, and not a single one has ever looked back. Only one country has ever decided, given to us by anyone else. Until Scotland is... Send a clear message to Westminster. Boris Johnson, hold your wish and let Scotland speak. He knew it had a purpose.
Oh, here's Rees-Mogg. Let's give Rees-Mogg.
Every step of that long journey has required us to be a broad and inclusive movement, one in which people feel welcome wherever they come from.
That's it, Danny certainly felt welcome.
One in which people feel welcome, whichever colour of that rainbow flag they identify with. I'm really glad to see that here today.
As I said, I'm very much pro-gay rights. I'm against gay people being attacked. I'm totally against that. I agree that gay people should be in the Scottish Parliament. However, the question I've got for the LGBT community is, are you producing any kids? We've got a democratic deficit in Scotland. What is your contribution to the democratic deficit that we've got in Scotland for the LGBT community? At least Ruth Davison produced one child. But I think we should understand that young Moby here is a Marxist. So he might be an environmentalist, but underlying, Carol called him a watermelon. Which is completely correct. Green on the outside like his jumper, but definitely Marxist on the inside, which is why he probably gets on so well with young Nicola.
Because it's in our diversity.
We haven't got a diversity. We're 96% white and predominantly Celtic as well. So we don't have a diverse society. You guys are trying to force diversity with your diversity officers or whatever else it is. My friends were all ethnic minorities in Scotland. So, and we got on great, there was no problems. We didn't need you racist Marxist characters to stir the well. It's you guys that's the problem, not even the minorities. Minorities were fine, get on great. Some of them were excelling. Our Chinese, Indian communities, the Pakistani communities are all doing better than the white indigenous Scots. So maybe you have to look at who's not doing well. And I know that doesn't fit into your repartee.
That we are strong, and it's in our diversity as a political movement that we are strong as well, and that is how we will win.
Just waffle.
I was thinking back to that campaign 20 odd years ago to create a Scottish Parliament. And
the Scottish Parliament is a very, very unattractive looking building. It's exactly the sort of unattractive looking building I would expect from socialists. I look round the architecture of Scotland to see the shit that's been put up by the socialists. It's just unbelievable. There's a site hill in Edinburgh and a site hill in Glasgow, and both have had to be knocked down because of the unattractive buildings that the socialists have put up.
How people joined in that campaign together across political boundaries, across the whole of Scotland. They saw the need for a Scottish Parliament. They knew it had a purpose, that it was something Scotland needed.
And I support the Scottish Parliament. I think it's better to have a Scottish Parliament and accountability at a local level and even the local government level. Even reduced down to the individual with less tax and less state regulation. But these guys don't believe that. These want more authority. Stay in your houses, don't get out. Oh, we've got a COVID virus that's not killing anybody. Or not killing many people, should I say. Very, very few people. If it's got a 99% survival rate, then this is ridiculous. What they've done. This is ridiculous.
Partly because it was a journey toward self-government, of course, but it was so much more than that.
Okay. What have we got? Where are you, Nicola? Oh, there's some are useless. Let's see how are useless.
Imagine, waking up the next day. So obviously, it didn't work the last time, but I'm hoping that his speech has got everybody fired up to get out on the road.
Good boy! Minister for Justice, Hamza Yusuf.
Oh dear, that's very embarrassing.
Alright,
we're going to put you in jail for 7 years. Wait till we get finished for you.
crowd in the house!
Oh, he's an MC. Alright.
Listen, I'm only all here to hear Nicola. I don't really want to hear what I've got to say.
That's true.
Don't worry about it. I
Good.
used to be Transport Minister. I know
Yeah, he's done a great job there.
popular, okay? So I won't take up too much of your time, but just a few remarks from me.
We're going to lock you up for 7 years if you say the wrong thing in your own house.
He's standing here as a Glasgow boy.
It's going to bring in Islamic authoritarianism.
George Square, where we have tens
Oh.
of thousands of people. What a beautiful sight you all are.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
You're gorgeous. And you want to know what I see when I stand here?
Victims, a prison population.
I see people of all colours. I see the black standing next to the white, standing next to the brown.
Identity politics, just a racist, just an absolute racist.
I see men and women. I see people of many nationalities.
It's just absolutely Marxism, isn't it? It's just Frankfurt School Marxism.
I see the gay and the straight. I see the religious and the agnostic.
But you want to kill the gays, as Jimmy had just mentioned earlier on, because you're a practicing Muslim. And you want to kill the agnostics as well, because that's haram.
And that is what our movement is about. It's an inclusive movement.
Unless you say something I don't like, and then we're going to put you in prison.
Whoever you are, wherever you're from.
Yeah, as long as you're not white and Scottish, then you're going to have a less opportunity to gain a white Scottish male. Then you're going to have less opportunity to succeed in your education system. You're going to have less rights in Scotland if you bring through your new bill. That's great, huh?
This is your country.
Is it? Who nominated you for telling whose country it is? Who brought you on board?
From Poland or Pakistan.
Let's have a look at this. David Wood, man. Oh, David Wood. Let's see what's happened in Pakistan. Oh, yeah. YouTube. My favourite YouTuber. David Wood. What a cracking guy. David Wood. Oh, let's see this. Here we go.
While the world is celebrating the end of 2020, jihadis are celebrating an attack on a Hindu temple in Pakistan.
Seems just like the bunch you want to be moving in next door to you.
The Guardian reports, a violent religious mob has set fire to a Hindu temple in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region and attempted to tear it to the ground. Crowds of thousands, reportedly led by Islamic clerics, descended on the Hindu temple in the village of Teri in Karak district on Wednesday and began to rip bricks from the walls and set it on fire. No one was inside the temple at the time. Footage from the scene shows the crowd chanting slogans and cheers greeting the destruction. I wonder what slogan.
Happy New Year to you too. I've been subscribed to your channel since you had 150 followers. Congratulations on receiving 1,000 plus. Thank you very much, Terry. That's much appreciated. I'm probably getting strangled on YouTube anyway. I would have suspected that I would have got more now, but I already know that I've been banned on LinkedIn, Facebook. So Silicon Valley is obviously doing a number and interfering to me as an unelected British politician. So they're obviously deliberately trying to affect me. So I wouldn't be surprised if YouTube was. But and make them right back to bite them. It's already, I believe Mark Zuckerberg's got big problems in America with breaking electoral, or allegedly, should I say, breaking electoral spending pledges. I think he's given 350 million to gerrymander the system. And I don't know, when I was watching, maybe try DLive. I tried DLive as well. I don't know what happened to DLive. I thought I was streaming directly to it, and apparently it's not. I just checked tonight again, and there's nothing up in DLive either. But we're working on our own platform, and we obviously can't trust the Americans. I mean, for something that's meant to have free speech, and for California, I don't know what the guys are like in California, but for them not to appreciate free speech and then try and censor us, even on the platforms, there'll be regulation probably brought in if they want to access our markets, and they won't get away with this. That won't be something that they'll just be able to get away with. So yeah, I'll try DLive as well. I saw Unity Use Network, a great program there, and they were streaming on it as well. Let's have a real look at Dave. I love Dave Wood.
They were shouting.
Dave Wood is probably a better cleric and understands Islam more than some of the Islamic preachers. It's unbelievable.
The shrine, which was first erected in 1919 before partition divided India and Pakistan, had recently undergone refurbishments after an order from the Supreme Court in 2015. This was the second time it had been demolished following an incident in 1997 when it had been destroyed by a group of Muslim fanatics. Notice this part about recent renovations. Anyone who's familiar with the Pact of Umar will understand why Muslim leaders would use renovations as a means of inciting a mob. As the early Muslim community conquered Arabia and then expanded east and west, most groups were given two options: convert or die. Christians and Jews were given a third option. They could become dhimmis, second-class citizens who acknowledged their inferiority by paying tribute money to Muslims.
Tribute money to Muslims. All right. In fact, let's see where we more, Dave. Dave, keep going. Sorry, apologise for cutting you off there.
Eventually, dhimmis would have to sign an agreement listing the various things they would do and not do in order to continue acknowledging their inferior status. The Muslim leader would demand that these well-known conditions be met by the Christians, these conditions that ensured their continued humiliation, degradation, and disgrace. Let's read parts of the contract. This is from the Pact.
So, that's very interesting. What's even more interesting is when I go to the Barcelona process. The Barcelona process. Let's have a wee look at this. The Barcelona process of the European and Mediterranean Partnership started in 1995 with the Barcelona Euro-Mediterranean Conference. It was organised by European Union, George Soros's mob, to strengthen its relationship with the countries in the Maghreb and Maghreb regions. The partnership laid the foundations for what was to come. This was Jacques Chirac's fantastic, very intelligent globalist. I mean, we've got to understand that the global agenda is for the one world government and the one world currency. That's what Nicola Sturgeon, not potentially Boris, but certainly all the other political parties in the Welsh nationalists, the Labour Party, the Liberals, Keir Starmer obviously being in the Trilateral Commission with Jeffrey Epstein. This is what all these guys have actually signed us up to, without putting in the manifestos, without actually telling us. So the Euro-Mediterranean Partnership today comprises 39 members, 27 European Union members, 3 candidates, Croatia, blah, 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 Algeria, Egypt, Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, Morocco. So this is why people are getting let in across the Mediterranean. That's why full towns have now been turned over to people who have came here. This has never been agreed by the populace. No British politician or no manifesto has ever had any of this to actually have it sanctioned or agreed with by the British population. This is why people are coming across from the Mediterranean, across from France, and just able to walk into the country, because this has already been agreed without the consent of the British people. Syria and Tunisia. And regardless, now there's been 1,000 people murdered by immigrants and by so-called asylum seekers or refugees, or whatever way you want to define it. This has been done by the globalists as an open door immigration policy. Libya has been obscured, blah, blah, blah. The Barcelona process is unique and ambitious initiative to lay the foundation of a new, or the globalist agenda relationship, which represents the turning point of Euro-Mediterranean relationship. So let's go into the in the Barcelona Declaration, and this also includes immigration as well. So if you want to go in and read a wee bit more about it, I'll let you carry on. So reapproach between peoples through a social, cultural and human partnership. So they're coming in with their Islamofascist, where people fought against Islamofascism. We have now, our political class, the globalist entities, have just said, oh, bring your Islamofascism here. Aimed at encouraging, and regardless of the social consequence that's actually happening in our countries. And now they've got, what they've done is through the what's it called? What's the racist? What's her name? White fragility. So the political class has already done this. So this nonsense here about white fragility and this absolute clown is either Robin DiAngelo is part of the Marxist school and potentially just a globalist front for the underlying Barcelona process and the Union of the Mediterranean.
Answer the question, what does it mean to be white?
Nothing. It doesn't mean anything to me. It's a skin colour. When I see somebody brown or Hispanic, I just treat them just like everything else. But what you mean by that is not what you're projecting. What you're saying, oh, what does it mean to be white? Does it matter and all that? What is the underlying thing is we're basically being told we're having open borders and you're just going to have to accept being an ethnic minority in your own country. That's all of the things that have actually been happening here. You're going to be displaced.
In some ways that may seem like a simple question.
I think you seem like a very simple, idiotic individual.
But I've been asking my fellow white people and
My fellow white people? What, are you in the Ku Klux Klan?
myself that question for 25 years.
Did they say, who are you, you idiot?
And consistently, white people have...
Say, who are you? Who are you? Just like they did to Jeremy Corbyn, who are you clown?
have responses to it. And the first response is discomfort.
Somebody's discomfortable about being white. All right, I live in a cold climate. That's probably for generations, and it makes sense to be white. You absolute buffoon.
And the second is an inability to think critically about that question.
Because it's not an issue. Why would your skin colour be an issue? The only issue is the underlying point that is actually happening from a political level, and that is the demographic displacement of the indigenous population, deliberately done by the political class through the Barcelona process and through the UN compact. So what she is, although she sounds like a racist Frankfurt School Marxist scumbag, she is actually shilling for the globalists, and it's the globalists that are actually probably fronting her up, and this is why this crap's going into schools, because the globalists are basically saying you're going to be ethnically cleansed in your own countries by the importation through the treaties that we've signed through the Barcelona process, UN Compact, Marrakesh, and the Union of the Mediterranean.
And if you can't answer what it means to be white...
What did you mean? What does it mean to be white? So if I go on holiday and get a bit brown, then what does that mean? What does it mean to be slightly red or slightly tanned? What does that mean? Nothing. It means nothing. It's not a point. It's not a political point. Only for racists like yourself.
You cannot hold what it means not to be white.
I talk to non-white people all the time. Do you know how I talk to them? Exactly the same way as I talk to anybody else.
The ability to think critically about how our own race shapes us is not benign, and it's not neutral, and it's not innocent.
So this is underlying Frankfurt School Marxism. So the permeation, I'll come back to that in a minute, the permeation from the Marxist, the Frankfurt School through Columbia University, and then permeated to get this airhead to think she's intellectual.
Collective impact of the white majority.
Well, there's plenty of countries that have got black majorities or brown majorities, if that's the way you want to classify things. So for instance, I had to leave, I was forced to leave the UAE, which had probably an Arab minority, but they were still governing the whole show. They had rules in so that they were going to govern it, which I had no problem with. I had to leave. But what you're saying is, how are you going to feel when you've been displaced in your own country by the open door immigration policy that George the Nazi had wanted to bring in?
Not being able to answer that question, how race shapes our lives.
It's the human race, you clown. People who don't look like you aren't a different race.
Collectively creates an environment that is hostile and supportive to people of color.
I don't see them as people of colour, so I mean that's you othering them as if they're not got agency in themselves. This guy's got brown skin. Oh well, he must be a people of colour. He must need support. Does what's his face? Who's the ex-president? Does he need support? There's tons of black people who are doing very well. Charles Barkley, I love Charles Barkley, the basketball player. Sure, he's doing fantastically well. Oh, but yeah. He's brown and he needs support. I mean, how condescending to people based on their skin colour?
Because people of colour working and living in primarily white environments know that most white people can't answer that question.
Because they probably don't want to. It's not really it's not a political question. And this is actually like sidelining, taking away the debate from what is the problem, and that's the corporatist globalists.
It means they can't bring their authentic selves. They can't talk.
They can't bring their authentic selves. I know tons and tons of ethnic minorities who talk to me just normally. Talk to me, it's not even a factor. It's not even a factor when I'm talking to them. Obviously it's a factor to you, you buffoon.
To us about what they're experiencing. They can't give us feedback about what they're experiencing from us. For some reason,
what they're experiencing from us?
No critical awareness to engage in the conversation. I'm going to have no skills in navigating that conversation. And I'm going to likely have no emotional capacity to withstand the discomfort of that conversation. And that means that people of color endure countless days, slights, and indignities, mostly unaware and unintentional.
Well, if it's unaware and unintentional, then just ignore them. I get absolutely slaughtered half the time you want to see my national press in Scotland from our friend Paul Hutchins. And that's more than just a wee slight, that's him making up lies. I've got to mollycoddle you. Oh, get off.
But harmful nonetheless. And they endure those and take them home because their consistent experience is that things are going to get worse for them if they try to talk to us about it rather than better. So the very first thing we need to do is begin to unpack how race shapes our lives. We're raised to think about race as what they have, and if we're going to be talking about
I don't see people who don't look like me as a different race.
race, we expect to be talking about their race, and we have to start with
Oh, she is a racist. Oh, get off. Horrible. See, this is where you've got to actually see what a racist looks like. There you go. There's a racist there. Hamza Yusuf, another racist. So, what have we got now? Union of the Mediterranean. So there you go. So this is the Union of the Mediterranean. And what is the Union of the Mediterranean? The Union of the Mediterranean is an intergovernmental organisation, 42 member states from Europe to the Mediterranean basin, 27 EU member states and 15 Mediterranean partners, countries in North Africa and West Asia and Southern Europe. It was founded in 13th of July 2008 at the Paris Summit for the Mediterranean with the aim of reinforcing the one world government, one world currency agenda. That was set up in 1995 as the Barcelona process from intellectual genius Jacques Chirac. Its general secretariat is located in Barcelona, Spain. Is it alright? More governmental jobs. The Union has the aim of stability, integration throughout the Mediterranean, and its forum for discussing regional and strategic issues based on principles of shared ownership. Alright. I'll try and get there's Jacques Chirac there. See, I told you the Euro-Mediterranean Partnership, also known as the Barcelona process, was created in 1995 as a result of the conference in the Euro-Mediterranean Ministers of Foreign Affairs held in Barcelona. So the globalists that are being elected ad infinitum are now not consulting the people that actually live in the country. They're just dictating, basically, not putting in the manifestos, not actually telling you what it is that they're actually doing. They're just doing it over and above you. You elect me, I'll do what I want. Without your consent, without your actual underlying knowledge. I reckon even the people who are politically attuned will not actually know what this is. Cultural exchange and strengthen civil society. Well, we've just had 1,000 people killed in the Europe, some in horrendous ways because of this. Moreover, the Barcelona process includes 6 countries institutionally prepared, blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to find about immigration. However, the European Commission and Germany were more cautious about the project. I'm surprised at that. They've just imported, old Merkel's just imported millions. The European Commission saying that while initiatives promoting regional cooperation was good, it would be better to build up existing structures, notably among them being the Barcelona process. German Chancellor. So the globalists were pushing the agenda, and I'm surprised because Angela Merkel is an arch globalist, pushing the agenda for this. In particular, objecting to the EU funds to fund a project which was only to include small number of EU states, but obviously they want to make it bigger and bigger, breaking down barriers of movement, and basically you can live anywhere regardless of what would happen to the underlying society or culture or anything else. They don't care about that. Mediterranean investment, launch, social, cultural. So it's very, very different cultures, very different ways of looking at the world, and things that might actually come to clash, which have clashed for generations. But now, because of the globalists deciding this above the populace, that they've just decided this is what's going to happen. Nothing in manifestos, nothing in anything else. So here's the aims. The UFM's goal is to enhance regional cooperation, dialogue and implementation of concrete plans and initiatives with tangible impacts on our citizens. Well, you certainly had that. Give you a due. I think there was another 3 people killed in France by Muslims. The UFM have consolidated an action-driven methodology. And don't forget, Macron is also a globalist as well. Let's not kid on. Just because he's espousing some values after so many of these populists has been killed, let's not kid on. He's not just a globalist stooge as well. On the ground to adequately address the challenges of the region and key interrelated proprieties. The methodology is composed of 3 components: framework, dialogue, platform, regional projects. Sports projects that address common regional challenges likely to impact on the lives of our citizens. Human development. After a consultation process with stakeholders in the UFM launched in 2013, a regional initiative for Med for Jobs that defines the proprieties of intervention in terms of employment, intermediary services, job creations in the regions under which the specific projects are developed. So, I mean, it seems quite the next generation of leaders growing and scaling the medium-sized businesses. So what they do is they pull on leaders that they want who are going to be compliant, developing women empowerment, employment skills for women, young women as job creators, promoting women empowerment for inclusive and sustained industrial development in the MENA region, women's right to health. I think all of that's relative in the Muslim countries. "25 years after 1995 Barcelona Declaration, the EU failed to accomplish any of its objectives announced in the declaration. The Mediterranean did not become a common area of peace, stability and shared prosperity. A free European Mediterranean free trade area had not become a reality, and initiatives to strengthen human rights and democracy had achieved nothing. In Islam, part of Islam is obviously a governmental structure, which is totalitarian. It's certainly not democratic. So when you're trying to, this is where secular dictatorships like Gaddafi or Saddam Hussein come to power. It's probably have a secular dictatorship rather than a religious fundamentalist dictatorship. Or even when we saw in Egypt, they were going to go down a more conservative, well, not conservative, conservative, but I mean, it was horrendous how they brought in Sharia law and other horrendous things and taking Egypt back. The democracy had to be shelved. A major reason for the lack of success in the EU was torn between values and interests. I bet it was. I mean, I think a lot of the people haven't read the Quran. This is the problem. If you're living out a 7th century book and you're projecting a society based on that 7th century book, you're going to have a society that resembles the 7th century, aren't you? Right, I've had enough of that. Let's go to the Conservative Party were in both with the Barcelona process and the Union of the Mediterranean. They had to sign it up with us. So treaty in Marrakesh. So again, Theresa May, there was a petition with 100,000 names for this to be debated in Parliament. It was ignored by Guerilla Theresa May. The Marrakesh Treaty makes the production and international transfer of specifically adapted books. That's not what it is. And immigration. Well, that's a cracker. The WIPO administration Marrakesh Treaty makes a production, and you can see, and international transfer of specific adapted books. Sorry, that's not what it says. These were from authorised summary government consultation. UN treaty, there it is there. So the UN again. Why is the UN deciding what the immigration policy? There's the immigration policy there. Why would a non-elected globalist entity such as the UN be dictating what the immigration policy was in a country? Why would a globalist entity tell the individuals of a country without the individuals within the country voting or even being notified that this was actually part of the actual situation? They didn't agree to it. They're just forced upon with the, and as you can see, it's predominantly men. More than 190 countries agree to the coordinate their effects to make immigration safe and more orderly. Early this year, with the Treaty of the UN nation hailed as a milestone. I don't remember doing that, but Nicola Sturgeon is obviously, she's already in part of the globalist cabal, and she's obviously agreed to it without the consent of the people that are actually here. Providing global cooperative frameworks for immigrants, not refugees, who fall under existing immigration legal framework through 23 objectives. It's not legally binding, meaning that countries who ratify it are not legally obligated. But what they're trying to do is bring this in so that it is legally obligated. I don't know why the UN would have any legal instruction. I think this is what we've already got out of the EU today, but what they'll try and do is bring in UN control globalist control through the UN on the back door. This is what the Conservatives will do, the Conservative globalists. And obviously the Labour, Liberals, SNP, they're all globalist shell parties. Plaid Cymru, the Greens. A lot of the treaty deals with sharing of information between different stakeholders, including NGOs, so non-government organisations sponsored by George Soros. The different nations, for instance, agree to collect and share data on international migration to access key migrant trends, harmonise their theologies, and develop evidence-based policies. What we've basically been given through Nicola Sturgeon, Boris Johnson, is an open immigration policy, open door immigration policy, which I don't think it was in any of their manifestos. We've all got to just clap for this actually happening. So let's
We've paid all this money, £28 million, but it's still not stopping the crossings, is it?
Well, it doesn't seem to be. I'm not really surprised.
I'm not really surprised because we've already signed up to the Barcelona process, the Union of the Mediterranean, and basically de facto we have an open immigration policy.
Travel thousands of miles, and if anybody thinks they're going to be stopped by 22 miles of the English Channel, I think they've got another thing coming.
Because they've already decided that that's what's going to happen.
What should have been done is the British government should have made available asylum claimants who wanted to leave France and come to the United Kingdom and filter them, have them processed properly in France.
But even if you leave them in France, they'll still be able to cross. People are crossing just now. People are crossing. People are locked down in the house in the UK during a so-called pandemic. But people are allowed just to walk into the country. They could have the virus right there. But that's not stopped. So why are they able to come from France in the middle of a pandemic? If the last thing you would want is people just to be able to walk in the middle of a pandemic, why would you have the indigenous population locked down while other people who we don't know who they are just walking in?
And have them access the system of asylum under the Geneva Convention. What shouldn't happen is you shouldn't...
But why would they be seeking asylum from France? It doesn't make sense. Why would you... They've already travelled through umpteen countries. So why are they... And there's laws that you're meant to seek asylum in the first safe haven. So this is obviously quite clearly nonsense. This is obviously because this situation has been designed by our own political class to actually happen. So that, I mean, it's just... We're just getting sold a puck here.
To have an act of effectively piracy on the high seas, where people are prevented from claiming asylum simply because they happen to have been put ashore in a boat. And one of the consequences of this lack of foresight by the British government.
I don't think there's not been any foresight. We've just looked at it. It's up on the internet. It's been deliberately done.
Not except by the press. Is that people travelling to make a fortune out of this, and that is appalling. Clearly with the loss of lives as well.
What about immigration posts in France itself? Would that also help to stop the journeys?
Well, it might. People have a right to claim asylum.
But why is it all guys? Why is it all men, young men? And why is it all guys? If they're all seeking asylum, surely you would send the women and children first. And we already know that these are not asylum seekers. I just pointed out the immigration that's already been designed by the British establishment, that these people are part of the Barcelona process, the UN Compact in Marrakesh, and the Union of the Mediterranean. This is all been politically designed. They're not asylum seekers. Unless you're fleeing war, and you're not fleeing a war in Tunisia or Egypt, then what's the situation? If they are legal, if they are required to flee, so for instance, a gay person in the Middle East may have to flee, a woman may have to flee, like Sheikha Latifa or Sheikha Shamsa. They may have to flee, but this has obviously been designed by our own political class.
These are not people who are entering unlawfully.
Yes, they are. They're just coming across the documentation, and they are entering unlawfully. France is not a war-torn country.
They have a right.
They don't have a right. They meant to take asylum in the first place that they actually find.
The 1951 Geneva Convention to flee to a safe country.
Well, they've just gone through about 10 to get here.
Britain, for reasons best known to itself, decided to leave the EU. One of the consequences of this is that they cannot be returned to a safe country after January the 1st, 2021.
Well, they weren't getting returned anyway, were they? Let's be honest, because this was not happening anyway. So, being returned to a safe country, we don't know where they're from. You're talking in blanket statements.
Britain just has to live with that.
Britain just has to live with it. Well, I would suggest that we have an immigration policy where we return to the country of origin, DNA testing, whatever it took to actually try and identify. These people are not coming in passports, not coming in any identifiable way. DNA testing and repatriation, unless they actually are genuinely refugees, but that would only be a minority. But they're not. The Conservative Party, the Labour Party, and the Liberals are not going to do it. They're part of the globalist problem.
From what you're saying, that people are leaving a safe country like France and then risking their lives to get here. Why would they do that?
Well, you can't have your cake and eat it. Britain lauds itself as a country with some of the highest democratic and judicial standards in the world. It attracts people who are often English-speaking to come to the United Kingdom. They often have relatives and family or friends in the United Kingdom.
So that's just a blank slate then. That means anybody can come. So this is actually a demographic replacement through the use of mass immigration, which the corporatist globalists have already signed us up for, regardless of the consequences.
And therefore it's a consequence of the historical legacy of colonialism.
The historical... But some of these people weren't part of the colonies. They weren't part of the British Empire.
Just have to get on with it, I'm afraid.
I don't think so. I think if you come to a country illegally, you can get deported back to the country of origin.
And actually, what it should do, which it seeks not to do, is to have this sort of fortress Europe or xenophobic mentality.
It's a choice here, or we just let anybody in that wants to come here, which is basically de facto open immigration policy, and we're going to get, the indigenous population is going to get displaced or completely. There could be terrible things that happen. Or we have an immigration policy where people can't just walk into a country. I can't just walk into your house. They would phone the police and you would get taken away. So the same principle applies in nations as well.
To keep everybody out.
No, we're not talking about keeping everybody out. You come here legally. And if you're an asylum seeker, then you get found out if you're actually an asylum seeker, and then you get deported back to country of origin if you're not. The Conservative Party are not going to do that because they've signed us up to this.
Great risk to their own life and limb.
Well, that's up to them. That's what they've chosen to do. They've just walked through about 10 countries to actually get here, all of which are not probably at war as well. But we know this is all nonsense. We've just worked out that it's the government, both the globalists and the illiberal liberals and the Keir Starmers of the world, and even Boris Johnson, are part of the globalist cabal. And they want open borders, although it's not in their manifestos. We've just got to pay the consequences.
which that really is does a disservice to Britain's international standing.
Not letting people walk into your country. I don't think it does. I think that should be subjective.
Also, look at some of the practicalities as well. I mean, it seems to be that the French won't pick up the migrants once they're actually in the water. Why is that?
Well, no, it's not pick them up. The British mean to send them back to France.
Well, I don't think they should go back to France. They should go back unless there's a requirement for them to come here. Then they shouldn't be allowed just to walk in. They should be deported back to the country of origin.
And certainly the Society of Black Lawyers, the Association of Muslim Lawyers.
Two racist entities, obviously, or a racist and bigoted entity. So we are going to have to get the consequences of what may happen on the back of this.
We looked at the migrant situation in the Mediterranean and the Italian coast.
In the Mediterranean, through the Mediterranean, the Mediterranean.
Did exactly the same. They would rescue people. What they wouldn't do was send people forcibly back to Libya. And it's absolutely right that they had that high standard.
So basically, we've got a de facto aim. They can just walk in here. So in fact, all the wars to protect this country, they might as well not bother, because we were going to get the globalists in charge, and we were going to give away the country through the use of mass immigration, where people can just walk in.
So finally then, Peter, to wrap it up then, what's the solution?
Yeah, deporting back to the country of origin, unless you're actually a proper asylum seeker. And that will be debatable on how that actually goes down. But you shouldn't just get automatic citizenship. But this has been designed by a political class, so nothing's going to change and nothing's going to happen until the globalist entities or the globalist politicians go.
Well, the solution is a humanitarian one. If you actually have a process whereby even the Dove's children, the Dove's Amendment, where children can be reunited with their families and allowed to play.
So, I mean, anybody can do that. Anybody can say, they're part of their family and they can come in, and then that's them here. So that's just another open door policy. I'm their family, that's me in. So you can do that exponentially as well.
Asylum, then that should happen if they can work with the French authorities to facilitate asylum claims being made, and those who have relatives or friends or family who want to claim asylum in Britain, let them come.
No, I don't agree with that. So I don't agree with just letting anybody walk into the country. I don't know if they're asylum seekers or not, proper asylum seekers. And any just migrants should be deported.
I do not see what the problem is.
The problem is the deplacement of the indigenous population. The problem is that we've already seen 50 Muslim attacks in the UK. I'll go into the mass rapes that's been covered up by the UK. And we've already seen that. I've already shown you that there's 25% of racial attacks are happening to white people in the UK. The demographic replacement next year will show that London has been ethnically cleansed of white British people, and the new places don't have. It's just been a gradual reduction in the indigenous population in certain constituencies in the UK. So we're basically getting pushed.
If their claim is not strong enough, if it's not a good claim, then they can be sent back to the country of origin.
Well, there you go. I totally agree with that. But they've already signed us up to the Union of the Mediterranean. So the political process has already been done by the Conservative Party. Oh my God. So let's see. There was the the grooming gang report. So they brought this out quite well. So I'll take another far right organisation, the Independent. Something there. That's rather annoying. Twice. Grooming gang comes from diverse backgrounds. So again, report says that although high-profile cases include Pakistani men, existing evidence does not prove a link to ethnicity, but it may prove a link to religion, because obviously I'll show you that in a minute. The Independent employs over 100 journalists around the world, blah, blah, blah. Grooming gangs come from a diverse background. A Home Office review has concluded the research, but it doesn't say about Muslims raping non-Muslims. And that's obviously because the Prophet Muhammad was a child rapist and was a sex slave trader and he raped non-Muslims. It doesn't say about that, does it? And it just shows you how scumbagy the Conservative Party have become, and the Labour Party, that they're actually covering this up. The research originally promised by Sajid Javid in 2018 was published on Tuesday following the government U-turn. I'm going to do a total breakdown on what this says. The Home Office previously said releasing the paper would not be in the public interest in response to the Freedom of Information request by the Independent by committing to making it public after a petition signed by more than 130,000 people. So they were basically trying to cover it up because obviously they didn't want people to know that Muslims were raping non-Muslim children. And the police and the politicians had actually covered up because obviously they're importing people who follow this ideology. The paper said that although a number of high-profile grooming cases, including Rotherham and Rochdale and Telford, mainly involved men of Pakistani ethnicity, Muslims, links between ethnicity and this form of offending cannot be proven. Teenager hunted by death squad Pakistani. Guerilla 14 hunted by death squads of Pakistani begs. What's that? Christian girl 14 hunted by Islamic death squad in Pakistan after forced marriage escape. A Christian teenager in Pakistan is being hunted by Islamic death squads after escaping from home of a man she was forced to marry after allegedly being abducted and gang raped. Can't imagine where they get it from. The government is being urged to offer Maria Shabazz asylum in the UK. Now, this is a girl who should get asylum rather than people are just walking in. The 14-year-old this weekend making a direct appeal to Prime Minister Boris Johnson himself. The case was highlighted by a Catholic charity and aid and the church indeed. So, I mean, five Muslims gang rape and torture deaf mute girl for 2 months as police do nothing. They might want a job with the UK police and then they can diversify. If the roles were reversed, would that not be, well, I'll let you continue to read that as well. So, I don't know, obviously, kidnapping, rape and forced into Islam. Oh, aye. Kidnap, rape and forced plight of Christian girls in Pakistan. Christian girls have been abducted, sexually abused and forced into Islam with increasing frequency all throughout Pakistan. Everyone, including local police, court officials and Islamic clerics, seem bent on facilitating the human rights tragedy. But like what the Conservative government covering up the Muslim child rape gang report has done in the UK. Oh, unbelievable. A Christian 6-year-old girl was beaten and raped after being forcibly taken to a home of a Muslim rapist in broad daylight. in a sickening twist to the local Muslim community, are threatening the Christian parents with violence. Oh my goodness. Oh, unbelievable. So obviously we're going to import this by people just walking in to the country. Kidnapped, raped and forced into Islam. I mean, Muslim accused of raping teenager in Pakistan. Pakistan court sparks outrage by ruling 14-year-old must stay married to alleged abductor. Christian constituents 2% of Pakistan's population, but forced increasing violence and discrimination in the majority Muslim nation. Yeah, I don't understand why we're not really keen on this, how things are going. But let's look at Boris Johnson. So Boris Johnson.
Boris's great-grandfather Ali Kemal was born in 1869 in Istanbul, then the capital of the Ottoman Empire. Ruled by powerful sultans, the once mighty empire was now...
Slavery in the Ottoman Empire. Armenian women kept as sex slaves by the Turks. Seems a bit propagandist. Sex slavery, Eastern Europeans. Islam's Eastern European slave trade, by Muslim Turks. The Ottoman penetration into Europe in the 1350s. The capture of Constantinople later in 1453 opened the floodgates for slave trade under Islam again. Slavic slave trade by Muslim Turks and Tartars. European slave trade, the slave of the Ottoman Empire. Alright. So, let's see about this.
Now in decline, but it remained a force to be reckoned with. The Istanbul of Ali Kemal's childhood was a vibrant, cosmopolitan city.
Lots of traditional Turkish geezers doing their thing, watch out there.
Boris, Ali Kemal's life didn't continue in a traditional vein. As a young man, he travelled to France and became a successful journalist. In 1903, he married Winifred Broom, daughter of Margaret Johnson. 3 years later, Winifred and Ali had a daughter, Selma, his family with him. They settled in the village of Bebek, just outside Istanbul. Boris knows that on his return to Turkey, Ali Kemal continued his career as a journalist.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. We're going to go to the library.
He's meeting up with historian Ben Faulkner. As a journalist himself, Boris is keen to see some of the newspaper articles his great-grandfather wrote. Ben's taking him to the library where the originals are kept.
So, Ben wants to see. You can read this stuff, can you? Yes. This is the original copy of the newspaper that your great-grandfather wrote for. It's called Ikdam. And your great-grandfather is the lead columnist.
Okay.
Is that the right term? Okay. And this is starting here.
running down 2.5 columns, and there's your great-grandfather's signature.
No kidding, that's his byline.
That's his byline.
Oh, amazing.
So that's the prime real estate on the newspaper.
And it's political.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was political, dangerously political. A few weeks after Ali Kemal's return, there was a revolution in Turkey. In the name of liberty, radical nationalists seized power from the autocratic sultan. But soon the revolutionaries began to use repressive tactics of their own, including political murder. Appalled by this and convinced there were better ways to bring about change, Ali Kemal used his newspaper columns to speak out against the new nationalist government.
The contradiction that the revolution was waged, was carried out in the name of liberty, but yet liberty is being, in his view, sacrificed or put on the back burner. Force and pressure cannot exist in a constitutional era, whereas we try to do everything by force and pressure. So he's being critical of the government. He's being critical of the society for relying on brute strength when, according to him, ideas, consensus should carry the day.
Ali Kemal was running real risks by speaking out. There were ominous signs that the nationalist government would not tolerate his very public criticism.
Only 4 days before this article was published, an opposition editor had been assassinated by the nationalists.
The real tough guys.
Yes, and so the person murdered took a political stance very close to that of your great-grandfather.
Right.
So it must have been coming very close to the bone for him.
Wow, so this is 1909, and he's starting to get apprehensive about the fate of people who are in more or less his political position.
That's right.
I mean, what you see, I suppose, is a great lesson for about journalism.
On nous demande d'officialiser que comme quoi nos grands-parents étaient des assassins, alors que jamais personne n'a aujourd'hui, jamais personne.
It's quite interesting. Israel debate Armenian genocide.
The Knesset is debating whether to recognise Armenian claims of genocide in a move likely to further strain Israel's tense ties with Turkey. A parliamentary committee is discussing proposals to create a memorial day to mark the mass killings of Armenians by Ottoman Turks in 1915. Ankara rejects the genocide tag. Its once warm relations with Israel worsened severely after last year's bloodshed on a Gaza-bound aid flotilla. Israeli commandos boarded to prevent the flotilla challenging the naval blockade of the Palestinian territory. 9 Turks were killed in clashes. Last week, France outraged Turkey when its lower house of parliament backed a bill making it illegal to deny Armenians were the victims of genocide. In the diplomatic row that followed, Turkish Premier Recep Tayyip Erdogan accused France of having committed genocide in Algeria.
Oh well, everybody's getting accusing everybody else of genocide. But just absolutely incredible. So there's very real situations that are happening just now, and adverse situations to the indigenous population. Guys, I'm going to leave it there. That was just a wee roundup of what's actually going on. Love you guys. Happy New Year. Thought I would get something a bit low key.